please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome to the 300th exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start, instead of doing what I had planned, which was like a compilation of our greatest hits. This series doesn't really deserve that. We're instead going to start with an honourable mention to the channel of Illuminati, because why not? They have not uploaded in 3 months, which does lead me to believe that they only uploaded after they were essentially cancelled because of sponsorship commitments, to believe that their channel is basically dead. There is no coming back, and they are hedging their bets on the outcome of a trial with Oz Media, who has on their social media been regularly posting invoices and other references to their legal funds to show that they are not stealing the money that they have been receiving, something which Keffel should have considered doing before they decided to go off the deep end and dwindle a substantial amount of support they got built on a lie. In the case of Illuminati, this obviously is still ongoing, and I highly recommend everyone follow Mad Catster, certainly for when it comes to legal document updates, for all updates pertaining to this, because there's not much I can say beyond bye-bye to your dead channel. Not that mine's any better, I know, obligatory remark, but I didn't kill my channel, you did. We will do one more honourable mention before we move on. We're going to throw in Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan has featured within this series quite a bit, much like Illuminati, much like Keffel's actually. In the case of Dylan, they had recently gone to Peru and were talking about how good that made them feel.
Hi, is this an okay time? Okay, surprise, I'm in Peru. But I came here to feel something, you know what I mean? And I definitely have. I've done shaman ceremonies that were like 10 years worth of therapy. It was wild. I've seen a lot of llamas, and the people here are so kind. I feel very safe here. It's a little sad that I had to leave my country to feel safe, but that will get better eventually.
The fun fact is Peru recently passed a bill classifying trans people as mentally ill. I'm not entirely sure how safe you're going to feel knowing that the government in that country has determined you to be mentally ill, which in turn usually carries with it consequence. And Peru for a number of years now has had a problem when it comes to the LGBT community. So the level of cultural ignorance that comes from that of Dylan Mulvaney is astonishing. To be all pretentious about the therapies available and how refreshing it was comes from a position of, I'm just above everyone, I go here to tokenize this thing, make a video on it and sod off, and not actually live where there is a legitimate problem in Peru for those who are LGBT. But that is often the case, the problem for those who come from a remarkably privileged background, to go to other countries to seek out these therapies, these refreshing new environments, away from the oppression that is the freedom they actually have. Now with those out of the way, we're going to dive straight into the actor Steve Buscemi, who recently suffered a similar fate to that of Rick Moranis. Steve, much like Rick, is a much beloved actor, and obviously features in a number of memes. Steve, a Brooklyn native, was strolling along the 3rd Avenue near East 27th Street in Kips Bay, in eastern Manhattan at 11:48 a.m. on Wednesday, when outside the 369 3rd Avenue, he was punched in the face. Now, 3 days ago, when this happened, the police were unable to at that time catch the man who did this. The suspect is this guy featuring in this article. The New York Police Department have eventually identified a suspect in this as 50-year-old Clifton Williams. They have not yet, though, been able to locate him, and therefore no arrest has been made. Additional information, of course, has yet to come to light. This novel little thing of randomly punching people, while a quaint thing to do, not so smart when it comes to, well, the internet as a whole, because when the internet finds even one little bit of information, they will find you themselves. It's why those pictures of the suspect have found their way onto the internet. It's why the New York Police Department have released them. Social media is a remarkable platform for doing that, especially when it comes to somebody like Steve and of course Rick Moranis. For the sake of this particular story, if there are any further updates, I will put them in a future video, so do keep your eyes peeled, I guess, for that one. Moving on from that, let's come back to the United Kingdom and talk about King Charles and his recent portrait unveiling, and Prince Harry. In the case of King Charles, it is an annual tradition an artist is hired to do a portrait of the ruling monarch. I remember seeing a number of these done over the years for Queen Elizabeth II, more notably Rolf Harris. We're not going to show that. He's, he is a bit of a haram subject, to be honest. King Charles's, though, got memed to high hell on Twitter. This is the portrait in question. Does it look a little bit familiar? I say that because Ghostbusters 2 and Vigo were trending on Twitter. I like this picture, by the way. I think it is very creative and different. And that's the point of it. They're often meant to be very unique. That's why a different artist is hired every single time. Harry and Meghan were originally meant to be there to have a meeting, or Harry was, with his father. This did not happen. There's been much in the way of discussion over the years since this happened, well, the falling out that is, that at some point Harry needs to come home. A more recent article written by Petronella Wyatt believes that this would a reconciliation be good for their family and for the country, and I couldn't disagree more, because for as long as Harry is willing to indulge these delusions, he makes everyone else look remarkably sane. His biggest delusion, of course, being the fact he still thinks there's any follicles left on the top of his head, and him thinking that he gets to have sex with his wife. You'll find it right up there with that fake journalist car chase from last year. Harry has been in the news not just for not meeting up with his father when he had a chance to, but also because while doing a tour of Nigeria because of the annual or the celebration anniversary of the Invictus Games, his foundation, the Archwell Foundation, was given a delinquency notice. This would have in turn meant that the charity would have been suspended or given fines from the charity register. The delinquency notice was sent by the Californian Attorney General, and it suggested that the charity did not pay its 2022 tax return or related fees before the deadline. In this instance, as funny as it is to think that the charity is going under, and I'm sure it will within the next 5 to 10 years, it was actually the Attorney General's office's problem and fault, because they had the check that was sent to them, but they had not processed it until after the notice was received on the 3rd of May. Now, just to go back to the article talking about how maybe it's now time to bring Harry back into the fold, the article uses a source that used to work at the palace to indicate that William is harder to work with than Harry, and that William is a bit more pathological with his disgruntlement towards Harry. Additionally, the article writer believes that the microcosm that is the royal family needs to represent what it is to be a family in the United Kingdom and lift everyone up, because it is inevitable to have a Keir Starmer government and they're going to look at the royal family and what benefits they are to the country. If the family cannot uplift the royal family, that is, other people with joy and happiness, this would certainly do them no favours. They also believe in the article that William's and Charles's coldness towards Harry is starting to look inhuman. I disagree with this, fundamentally because Harry is the one that basically laid all the dirty laundry out there and crapped all over them. They did not respond to him. They did not give any fuel to that fire. They let him have his tantrum in public. It is a vastly different system. The royal family have always been removed from the oiks. They have always been that way. They may have a lot of money, they may have more privilege, which is mentioned in this article, but I don't believe the Keir Starmer government would be smart to get rid of them, and the idea of a republic would be the dumbest thing for our country to erase millennia of history, especially when this family still generate a huge amount of money, and using them as ambassadors does a better job than the politicians ever could. And they can try and say otherwise, but one of the main things the royal family are very good at is mediating. Even now, with essentially the two best spokespeople for the royal family, Charles and Kate, having been ill, they're still much better communicators and far more engaging than Camilla ever could be, and Prince William is nowhere near the level of that of Kate or Charles either. It cannot be denied he has the skills, but that does not justify bringing Harry back into the fold, because there's no point bringing Harry back into the fold. Even if you reconcile, he'll just go back and start crapping on everyone from his ivory tower in California again. So let's move on and talk about the Eurovision Song Contest. This might not be as well known to those of you lovely people in North America, although to be honest, since there are countries that aren't in Europe that get to compete in this, for reasons that are, let's face it, bollocks, give it time, I'm sure you'll be in it as well. Last weekend, the Eurovision Song Contest took place. The winners were Switzerland. Nemo won. They, that is one of their pronouns, broke the trophy when celebrating. It is customary for every country that enters to proudly display their flag. Now, you are also allowed pride flags. National flags are key though, because your nationality is your identity, it's what got you into the contest. The EBU has it very strictly in their rules that you cannot have outside of your national flag any other flag beyond pride. So some people turned up at the venue with a flag that encompasses many of these countries, but is in and of itself not a pride flag nor a national flag. It is the flag of the EU. The European Commission Vice President Margaritis Schinas wrote to the European Broadcasting Union, believing that such actions cast a shadow over what is meant to be a joyous occasion for peoples across Europe. But the EU flag is not a country, you're not a republic either. You're a quaint little Ponzi scheme. The EBU are not going to budge on this and have made it quite clear the rules are the same as 2023. They're hardly likely to change it either, because if you do that you may as well get rid of all the nations within the EU and make it one large conglomerate, therefore rendering the Eurovision Song Contest pointless, because countries in the EU will only vote for countries in the EU. Countries that aren't in the EU but are in Europe or outside of Europe are likely to be ignored. But this all gets better, because the Swedish police had to investigate the Dutch contestant Klein. I can't be asked to learn to pronounce your first name, because they were expelled from the competition hours before the grand final. Originally, they had failed to perform at 2 dress rehearsals, and what got them thrown out was that they had threatened a female member of the production crew. Competition rules are quite clear on this, to ensure a safe working environment for all staff and to protect the production. This was all caught on camera, by the way, so Klein is a bit on the screwed side. And while I fully believe in innocence until proven guilty, any footage on this does them no favours. There are certainly other discussions that could be had, certainly concerning Israel's performance, and people walking out booing when results came in concerning Israel. That's a heavily political problem. It really is. And to those that think that Eurovision Song Contest is supposed to be about the skill of the performer, yes, the over-the-top ostentatious shows people put on for one crappy cringy song. No, it's always been political. It's why technically, when the Russia-Ukraine war thing started, UK came second to Ukraine at the Eurovision. Technically, we were considered the winners of it though, because we were the first country to help Ukraine. It's very political. Typically the UK feature quite low down, no matter how good our act is, because as far as our position in Europe goes, no one likes us. And yet so many people are so damn desperate to come here. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Before we get to the final subject, 2 honourable mentions. First to Commander Anthony Lambert, working at Derringford Hospital in Plymouth, who was performing an umbilical hernia repair on a child in 2016, a 12-year-old child. Without consent, they then operated on the 12-year-old child's genitals. Their justification for it was that it didn't look normal. In this case, it was because of a fusion of the foreskin to the head of the penis known as the glans. In this case, Commander Anthony Lambert has been suspended for 6 months for not consulting the parents or the child before acting. The final honourable mention goes to a hypersensitive Japanese academic who tried to sue a British university for racism after her university boss told her that she liked sushi. Not a joke. This is true. Senior academic Professor Ozane was making small talk and trying to be friendly to find common ground. That is what the tribunal has ruled, and that no reasonable person would have taken offence at her question. So to the final subject, Assassin's Creed. It's getting a lot of attention because of the new Assassin's Creed Shadows leaked, release image stuff, because of a black samurai based on a real historical person who was not a samurai at all. I fully understand there was a lot of discussion when it comes to the subject of the race of characters in games. The representation part is key. Historical accuracy, if you're going to feature historical figures, would also seem appropriate. I do find it somewhat strange you're going to go all the way to Japan to then not feature those who are predominantly Japanese. That's a bit weird to me. To instead focus on one character, well 2, but one is fictional, the other is not, and not have a Japanese cast, if that makes sense. It's a strange oddity, I'll give you that, but there are other things to consider. If the game is anything like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Odyssey, and I'll include Origins as well, with the massive open world and bollocks load of freaking side things to do, it's a negatory from me, because I will admit I've been playing Valhalla and Odyssey on Twitch. It's exhausting. It's exhausting and I get nowhere. I'm also constantly on the back foot and unable to actually get ahead. I find that baffling. Your skill trees are nonsense too. It's bad enough that you make Unity look really good. I like the stealth. The RPG crap needs to go the way of the dinosaurs. Now, there's more to this though. Ubisoft is trying to follow in the footsteps of PlayStation, Xbox, EA, Rockstar to launch services based on games with a subscription fee. Ubisoft Plus is one of them. Ubisoft, though, are planning Assassin's Creed Infinity, but it will only be for the company's flagship franchise. This Ubisoft Plus, that is. Many fans do not support this either though. They don't support this because it feels like the franchise is just being damaged. And to be honest, I'm already sick and tired of constantly going to Steam, clicking on a game, Assassin's Creed, to load, and then having Uplay pop up and I have to log into that. We have it with PlayStation with some games now on Steam. You have it on multiple platforms. It's beyond frustrating to have to log into two separate things just to get onto one sodding game. If you are spending so much making a game that you then have to create a live service nonsense bullshit thing to make this all work and to recoup the money you've spent on a game that's far too big, might I recommend going back to the good old days when games actually made you money. Enough money that you then developed an ego. But do us a favour, ditch the ego and just make good games. These RPG games are not on your side, and I'm not commenting on Mirage because I don't know enough about it yet. We have reached the end of the 300th exhibition of stupid people, and I do want to know what you all think. We have got this far. I'm quite impressed. Attrition is clearly the way forward. I should of course conclude by saying thank you to everyone that watches these, because I like doing these videos. It's been a bit of a dry week on news of late. However, there's always something stupid to talk about, something for which I am eternally grateful for. Thank you.